Welcome to the Ogden Way podcast, a place where we talk about Ogden stories through the lens of Ogden's people, where we visit with community leaders. Today we have Diana Lopez. Diana is our community outreach coordinator for the Ogden Police Department.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
A role that's obviously important.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
So, welcome to the show. Thank
you.
for sitting with us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. We'd like to bring people to the show that need to be known.
Oh, well, thank you.
But not just the people, the stories and the work that's being done by the people that we want to make sure that the community is aware of. So Diana Lopez, definitely a community leader, definitely somebody we all love in the building here, but somebody that I think the community would definitely needs to know.
Thank you.
Yeah. So community outreach coordinator.
Yes.
Tell us what that means.
The easiest way for me to sum it up, so I don't take up all day, is anything basically that you think the police doesn't do probably falls in my wheelhouse. So anything that has to do with outreach, anything that has to do with building those relationships between law enforcement and our community members, anything that has to do with helping the perception of law enforcement, anything, if it comes down to one kid doing a station tour or a big presentation with hundreds of people there, we're probably going to do it. So That is in a nutshell.
So the other duties as assigned section of your job description is long.
Very huge. Yes. Other duties as assigned
Got
is
it.
the bulk of my job.
Okay. So I know a little bit about you, but let's let people know a little more about you, because I think a lot of who you are is why you probably were attracted to this job, right?
Yes.
So I know you're a first generation immigrant.
Yes.
From Mexico.
Sí. De Michoacán.
Michoacán.
From Michoacán, yes.
Okay, tell us about that. Tell us about that journey.
I used to reflect on it differently when I was younger. Now that I'm older, now that I'm a parent, I definitely have a very different appreciation for my parents. My parents brought me over when I was 4. So I do remember some things in Mexico. We still go back and visit. My parents still have a house in Mexico. A lot of my family still has houses in Mexico, so we still go back often. But when I was younger, I used to think differently about my parents. I didn't really understand the sacrifice that they really made. Now as a parent, I cannot even imagine just the strength that it takes to grab your child and take him to a whole different country without knowing the language or knowing anything about it.
Yeah, that would be daunting.
Yes.
Right? A lot of courage.
Absolutely.
Sacrifice and courage.
Yes. Probably when I was in my late teens, early 20s, we went back to Mexico one time, and I think that's when it really hit me that I was kind of looking around. I'm from a very, very, very small town in Michoacán called El 20. We now have paved roads. Yay. No stoplights. So it's very, very small. And we went back one time, and I realized that all the girls that were kind of around my age, they had completely different lives to what I had here in the U.S. I think that was the first big, awakening for me, that I was like, wow, my life would be very, very different.
Very different.
Had my parents not chosen to bring me to the U.S. when I was 4. I've had so many opportunities. The U.S. really is a land of opportunities. Good, bad, and different, however you feel about it, America really is the land of opportunities. And I know that everything that I have, even now in my adult life, is really because of the sacrifice that my parents were able to make to bring me here so I could have a better future than I would have had we stayed in Mexico.
Yeah, that's a good story, because obviously there's a lot of rhetoric right now, a lot of discussion around the country and in the world around immigration. And unfortunately, the tone of those discussions is around some kind of criminal element, but really the overwhelming majority of cases are people that are out to make a better life for themselves, and they do the work to make their lives better.
Absolutely.
And that's an important part about the Ogden Way is, we can't hand anybody success, but our goal is to try and create an environment where opportunities are available. Yeah. And then we do feel a role to make sure that we are connectors and connecting people to those opportunities, right?
It's definitely happened.
Yes, but it's important that when we're doing that work, that people take their own ownership over their own success and invest in themselves and invest in their success, right?
Yeah. That's one of the big things I think that I got from my parents is I was never told, or the victim mentality was never even a thought in my mind, because that's not how my parents were. My parents were like, well, you work for it, and if you work for it hard enough, then eventually you'll be able to attain whatever it is that you want. There was never an excuse. There was never anything like that in my family. they always just said, well, you just have to work really hard. It's not going to be easy and it's not going to be fun and you're not always going to enjoy it, but you have to work really hard. And if you work really hard, then the sky's the limit. And I believed that. And I still believe that. So they definitely taught me that.
Yeah. Did you ever think you were going to end up in this kind of work?
Oh my gosh, never.
Never.
Not really.
No.
No, I went to Weber State. I'm the first in my family to graduate from high school. Went to Weber State, got my associate's degree, then I got my bachelor's degree in criminal justice, and I wanted to be a juvenile probation officer. I got into working with some of the at-risk youth. That was the term at the time. I got into working with the kids by accident, and then I loved it. So switched my major, did the whole thing, and ended up majoring in criminal justice and went to work for juvenile court. I was a juvenile probation officer, and that's where I was going to be.
So, fun fact, first of all, you went to high school at Ben Lomond?
Yes.
Go Scots.
Yay.
Yep. And then, so I actually had the same major at Weber State with an emphasis in law enforcement.
So is mine.
Right?
Yep.
I'm told I'm not allowed to ask what year you graduated, so I won't.
That's okay. Well, I'll tell you what year I graduated high school because that was a whole lot easier. I graduated high school in 2003.
Okay. Yeah, you're young. Yeah.
Tell it to my bones.
Tell it to my joints.
Yes, when I wake up.
So when you were at Weber State, you get a degree in criminal justice with
Yes.
an emphasis in law enforcement.
Yes.
You're planning to go down the youth path.
Yep.
A lot of my teammates in college were also classmates in that same major and went that same route, especially in the corrections side, it seems.
Yes.
Right?
It's such a fun group of people, and a lot of them are still there, which is really fun. One of the great things about my job now is I can still have those relationships, and I can still continue to build those relationships with juvenile court and in the juvenile arena. And there's so many people that are still there.
Yeah. Well, they're doing their life's work, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, it is the kind of work that grabs you as your purpose, as your why.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Do you feel that way in your work at the department?
I do. And it has been probably one of the biggest blessings, unexpected blessings that I had was being able to work at the department because I did not anticipate. I was happy at juvenile court. And a friend of mine talked me into applying for this new position that the department was going to create because the department realized that there was a big gap between law enforcement and the community. And she's like, you should do it. You're from Ogden. You know the people. You know how to do this. You know how to connect. So I applied, and much to my surprise, here I am, 10 years later.
10 years later.
And I'm not leaving, so don't fire me.
Okay, I won't.
Deal.
Well, I think that's an incredible journey because a lot of times what we end up doing is not what we expected, right? I never thought I'd be the mayor of Ogden. I mean, I used to be a fish biologist for crying out loud. What does that have to do, right?
Yeah.
But that was decades ago. But it's always nice to know when you can do the kind of work that resonates with your heart and is what does feel like your purpose or your why. Like famous author in leadership Simon Sinek says, start with why. It helps bring out the best in you, right?
Absolutely.
And I definitely see that from you.
Thank you.
And as is evidenced from all of the events that you guys host, I know that you are the one behind it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And I'm sure there's tons of support from the department along the way.
Absolutely. It's amazing. The fact that, so when I got hired, they said, okay, go help fix our relationship with the community. And I said, okay.
How do you do that?
And then they said, okay. And I was like, okay. So they have 4 chiefs in now, and they have been just amazing with support. They have been amazing with my wackadoodle ideas sometimes that I have and come up with. And up until now, knock on wood, as long as I've been able to justify why I think there's a need in the community, the department has gone along with my suggestions on how to build those relationships and how to just be more involved within the community.
Well, that's good. I think it's empowering.
It is.
But it also speaks to the trust that they have in you in what you're recommending as to how to build those bridges, right?
Yeah.
That's good. I'm glad to hear that. So that you're working under your 4th chief.
Under my 4th chief.
Chief Ashman, Chief Watt, Chief Young, now Chief Subi.
Yes.
Awesome. And the support for community engagement has remained steady the whole way.
Yes. Yeah. It's always a little nerve-wracking every time there's a new chief because you never know what roles they're going to take, what initiatives they want to do. And thankfully, all of them have seen the value in just building the relationships within the community. I think it's helped in so many different arenas. I think it's also helped with the support that the community gives the police department. I'll never forget when the whole George Floyd thing was happening. We lost Officer Nate Lyday. Mm-hmm. It is just amazing that we had so many people within the community. Every day there were cards. Every day there was the stuff that there was food, there was snacks, there was drinks. Every day there was support from the community there.
I remember those times, obviously. I think the history will always remember those times.
Yeah.
No more important time to have your role or to be in your role than then, right?
Yeah.
What was it like at that time?
It was something that I don't think anybody could prepare you for. I was working at juvenile court when Jared Frankham passed away, but just being in the department, it really, I think to this day, there's still a little bit of PTSD between all of us that were there for Nate. When a call comes in and the officers just run out, you realize, how many friends you have, how many like really genuine friendships and relationships you have within the department, and you don't want any of them to not come back.
Yeah. I haven't been through that, and I hope I don't.
I hope you don't either.
Right? But I've been through some challenging things with the department, and, for the viewers and listeners, when you're a mayor and you have a big city police department, every day there's just things. And the things that we've been through have actually been hard on the cops.
Yeah.
The hardest things that I've been through with them have been hard on them.
Yes.
Not on the community as much. And so I feel like I get to have a glimpse into the true people and the character.
Yeah.
And I'm really thankful that I get to have that. And I try to share it as much as I can, because that's not an experience everybody gets to have.
Right.
I recognize that. But it's those experiences that are really important when you have a tragedy like we've been through. Yeah. Right? And that you've been through with Officer Frankham and Lyday. Yeah. That is so hard on the department.
It is. And I'm a fixer. I want to fix stuff. I want people to feel better. I want to make sure that, everyone's just can feel as best as they can. And when you are looking around all these people that you genuinely care about and you can't do anything to make them feel better, it's not even about, I want me to feel better. It's what can I do to make my friend feel better?
Right.
So I'm going to get emotional. I'm sorry. I didn't plan on that. But it's really challenging just to see all your friends who go in and out on a daily basis. I always use this term with the little kids when we give presentations to little kids. Like, they're the real life superheroes. They really do go out and protect us from seeing what you see, protect the public from all the ugliness of the world, or try to protect the public from all the ugliness in the world. And then when you can't do something, when they're hurting and you can't do something to help them, it just really shows how much of a family we can be.
So you and I have talked about this before.
Yes.
And you're emotional because it matters.
Yes.
And that's the thing that's important, is it's the people behind the badge that matter.
Yes, absolutely. Right? Absolutely.
And that's the point of your work. It's to introduce the community, as many people as possible, anybody that's willing to meet the men and the women behind the badge.
Yes, because they are amazing.
Right. That's my experience.
Yes, such a great group of people.
When you go through such challenging circumstances, you see the best in people, and it's also an opportunity to see the worst. Yeah. And I just continue to see the best, the level of character and it's really touching. I wish everybody could see it, but at the same time, not everybody can. Yeah. Because not everybody gets to be the mayor or gets to be Diana Lopez.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes, I'm in a super fortunate place.
Yeah. So I feel like when there's something that comes up in the community, I want to help build that bridge, because I want them to feel and to see what I see the best they can. Yeah. Right? And that's the point of your work. Yes. And that's the point of your events?
Yes, that's the whole point of my events. Right. It's the point of my events is I've gotten to know all these amazing men and women at the department, and I don't know that I could do my job for another department, because I think we just have the perfect mix at Ogden Police. I've gotten to know them. I've gotten to build these relationships with them, and I tell them all the time, they make my job easy. Yeah. If they
that's what I tell them too.
Yes. If they sucked at life, it'd be really, really hard to go defend people who were genuinely not doing good things. But when I know the hearts of
Yeah.
our officers, and I know the majority of them are amazing, wonderful people, and I know that all of them just have the best intentions when they go out on every single call, it's really easy to go out and promote what they're doing because I know what they're doing.
Right. I feel like you've been to some of my swearing in and promotion ceremonies because,
Yes, I have.
right? Because what you just said, if they suck at life, they're going to suck at being an officer. And that's what I say is we don't hire men and women that are not good in life.
Mm-hmm.
We have to have good people in
Yeah.
order to be good police officers.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, absolutely.
And that's where, maybe that's an easy thing to say. It's a harder thing to do because there's so much demand for officers and there's so much competition amongst departments. And there's
Yes, absolutely.
also competition from other industries to take them because people know that they're good people that do good things and know how to lead and to act. And
Yeah.
so it's
And the
easy to lead 'em.
retirement and the burnout rate.
Oh my gosh.
All those things just play a factor. And
Right.
sometimes the good ones, you can't blame them when they want to retire. And
I
they have
know.
their time.
Well, that's why retirement used to be 20 years because
Yeah.
20 years was a long time in that field.
Yeah.
Now
no,
it's 30, right? Or is it
25?
25? It's 25 now.
25, yeah. But still, you add another 5 years. That's a long time.
And they're-
when you're already
And they
tired.
could be really hard years.
Yeah.
So it's important that we think about the mental health of our officers, the well-being of them, because honestly, the way that they translate that into their work affects the mental health and well-being of our community.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely.
Tell me what it is when you plan an event.
Mm-hmm.
What's the best part about the event itself for you?
The best part for me, I think, is twofold. The first part, I think it's really sometimes giving some of our community the opportunities that they don't have sometimes on a regular basis. One of the ones that was one of our biggest successes was at the Treehouse. We rented out the Treehouse Museum.
Yep.
And we partnered with United Way and gave out some diapers as well. And just giving some of the community just the opportunity that you can come and hang out at the Treehouse for free, get something you need, and hang out with our officers. And then the second part that I really enjoy is watching our officers let their guards down and just having fun. When we rented out Neptune skating, oh my gosh, I have so many funny videos and
I
pictures.
see some pictures of
Yes.
Chief on skates. And
Yes.
I know.
It's just letting them have just a different tone for the day. Just letting them relax and have fun and play. Those two are my favorite things.
And I'm just thankful there weren't more workers' comp claims that day. Right?
I was sure there was going to be a few, but I don't think we did.
So you guys do these events for families, and
Mm-hmm.
they bring out the kids. You did it at the Treehouse. You did it at the skating rink. You also did it at Dino Park.
Yep.
Right? And
Yep.
they get packed. I mean, the outpouring is incredible.
Yeah, it's amazing. So we decided to call this our summer series events, and we started last summer. And the summer before that we started, and now we're just every year we're trying to make it just a little bit bigger and a little bit better.
Well, it's a high bar every year.
It is. It really is. But luckily we have so many amazing places in Ogden that it's nice. It's fun. It's always fun to go to a different place and see what happens.
So that's a really good approach because you got to get those connections in place before really there's a tragedy or something really significant in someone's life, or maybe it's just a day-to-day thing for an officer, but it's not day-to-day at all for the people that they're responding for.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the times where you need to have that kind of exposure in place, right?
Right.
Do you ever have a lot of conversations or engagement with individuals, maybe after an event or in response to an event or anything like that?
Yes, I do. And I love the feedback. The feedback is my favorite part. We always have really great feedback. We have a lot of times we have grandparents who are now the caretakers for their grandkids. Mm. And those I think are ones that are, for me, are really meaningful because obviously the family's going through a rough time. If grandma and grandpa are now taking care of grandkids, there's some sort of difficulty going on in their lives. And it's really empowering, I guess, to hear from them that that we're showing their grandkids that the police officers aren't always the bad guy. That, maybe mommy or daddy made a bad choice, but that the police are still there to help. And some of these events, even though they seem a little silly or they seem a little off, it's the best way to let people's defenses just come down, to let down their guard, give them some food, give them a drink, interact in weird, silly ways, and then people's defenses come down.
Yeah. So I've seen exactly what you're talking about, where the officers kind of let down their guard too. Because I've been on a number of ride-alongs. I've obviously interacted with a lot of our officers on the job here.
Yeah.
I've seen them before I was mayor and as a mayor. And you definitely see when they go to work, they have a lot on their mind. It's heavy.
Yes.
Right? As soon as they leave, and you say it's when they leave the building. I mean,
Yeah.
their head's on a swivel. They feel like they've got this target on them to a degree, and they're also looking out for others while looking out for themselves and for each
Yeah.
other. And so when they come back to the department, do you see them let that guard down?
Yeah. I'm going to borrow the term from our former Lieutenant Cottrell, who came back and worked after he retired. But he called it flipping of the switch. And yeah, you definitely see it. You see when they come back into the station that their guard is just a weight comes off of them, and they're able to just be themselves for a little bit. But as soon as the call comes in, and as soon as they come out of the building, the switch flips all the way back up again, and then they're out and they mean business.
Yep. I remember one time I was at the rodeo talking to Lieutenant Stiver at the time, and he plays a big role at the rodeo and community policing bureau, right? And I remember I was talking with him, and I was like, is he paying attention? And what he was really paying attention to was he saw a couple guys that were maybe drinking too much, and they started to get into a little bit of a beef, and from far away he saw it.
Yeah.
And I just noticed that he was checked out, and I could, because his mind is somewhere else.
Yeah.
As it should be.
Yep.
And next thing you know, he was gone, and he intervened before there was a fist fight.
Yeah.
Like that's where his mind was. It wasn't with like, what's the mayor have to say? And it shouldn't be.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I've seen it too when we've gone out. We table a lot of events. And we've done several at some of our local parks. And same thing. I was sitting there with some of our community policing officers, and we're talking, and then all of a sudden they are not paying attention anymore. And they just get up and they just walk over. And there was some guys too on the far end of the park that were starting to look a little aggressive, and they just went and they just took care of it.
Yep.
So yeah.
That's what they're there for.
Yeah. It's amazing. I definitely feel safe coming to work.
Good. One thing that I've noticed from our officers too is they want to have a good relationship with our community.
Yes.
They want our people to respect the work they do, not because they demand it or there's some authority dynamic or anything. They genuinely just want to be understood for the work that they do, and including the things that they don't do. They want to be known. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep.
Anything we can do to help the community understand them and understand that, I think, goes a long way.
Yeah, absolutely. We've had agencies, outside agencies, come in to help us on different projects and different things. And most recently, a few months ago, we had an agency come into Ogden, and they went to one of our local restaurants, and they came up and they're like, "Oh, we just went to eat at XYZ," and then he said, "And they were so nice," and I was like, "Uh-huh." Like I didn't understand where he was going with the conversation. Like, is there something like a bud or a joke? What's coming? And he just said that where they're from, they don't even go out to eat because they're afraid someone's going to spit in their food. And he said, in here, everybody was so polite, even in the restaurant. Like,
was this from an out-of-state department or
it was in the state?
In-state department?
It was an in-state department, but they were baffled that they were treated so nicely when they went to lunch. And I was like, well, we do things a little differently in Ogden.
Yes, we do.
And then I said, and we have openings if you want to come.
Always recruiting, always closing, right?
That's right.
So that does bring us to the point, like, how is our relationship with our community, and how does it compare to other departments, right?
Yeah, I think overall we have a great relationship with the community. Obviously, there's always room for improvement, and we're always looking for those areas where we can improve and do better. But I think when you put us in just even a national level and even a state level, we just have such an amazing community. Like, our community really does love to take care of our officers.
Yeah.
And, for the most part, our community is always there for us when we need them. When we needed them with Nate, when we've needed them with anything else, our community has always shown up. Even some of our local activists, even them, when something comes up, they'll call me and say, hey, this is happening. And then we can try to diffuse situations before it turns to something that is so massive. We can actually get the correct information out there so we don't have a George Floyd situation or something that all these things, these terrible things that we see at a national level.
Yeah. So is your position common when you talk to other departments?
No.
Okay.
I'm the only one.
In the state or in the area?
I did go to a conference last May, and I found one of me in Texas, I believe. But she's only part-time.
Really?
Yeah.
So everything's not bigger and better in Texas?
Apparently not.
Okay.
So, yeah, I know there's some departments who reach out periodically, and they want to build a position similar to mine. But up until now, I haven't heard of them actually successfully completing it. I know Salt Lake PD for a while had someone in a similar position to mine who was also a civilian. I don't know how that's going because I haven't been able to get a hold of him anymore. So couldn't tell you how that's going.
Okay. Well.
Yeah.
Well, I think I have definitely seen the relationship between our community and our department. Certainly, there are people that don't want to have that relationship, right?
Right.
But by and large, I went to Washington, D.C. For the Fallen Hero event to support the family of Officer Lide. And I remember talking to an officer in Kansas. I won't say the city. But he said, like, so are you an officer? And I'm like, no, I'm a council member. And he's like, council member? What are you doing here? I'm like, well, here to support the family and the department and the officers. And he was like, I mean, it was unheard of to him that a council member, because he came from the context that their council would vote like 0 votes for and 7 against when it came to compensation or anything like that for their department. And so he was blown away that we had that kind of a dynamic. Yeah. Because we have a really supportive council, we have a supportive administration, we have a supportive community. But the support's not blind support. It's support rooted in results and integrity and expectation of accountability, et cetera.
Absolutely.
Right? So I'm really proud of who we are. But I attribute a lot of it to the work that they do and the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Because it does take a team.
Total team effort. Absolutely.
It takes a team. What are some of the things that we need to focus on moving forward to do better from your role?
I just think the biggest thing and the biggest way to be able to move forward, I think, is just continued support. Continued support is really how we make things happen. It's how we do events. It's how we do successful events. It's how we, calm down tense situations. It's just the continued support. And I think we just really need to hear each other, not talk at each other. Because one thing that I've noticed when I've done this for 10 years now. Who knew I'd still be here after 10 years? But everybody, when it comes right down to it, everybody wants the same thing. There's just different avenues that they want to go about it. There's different terminology that's used. And sometimes that terminology or those words, the other person finds offensive. But when you break it down, everybody wants the same thing. Our activists want the same thing. Our law enforcement wants the same thing. When you just really just tear it all down and tear it down to the bricks, everybody wants the same thing.
Okay. So we said earlier that you've been to a number of my swearing-ins and promotion ceremonies, and you've heard my message to the officers, so you can vouch for it or not, what I'm about to say. But I've been really pleased with the response of my message, because as the mayor, obviously I'm in a political position, a political figure, and police is work that is politicized across the country. And I don't want to politicize them. To me, it feels like if we're politicizing them, something's gone wrong, right? And either in their actions or in mine, or both. And so I make a commitment to them, and especially in the swearing in, because when we get to a promotion, that's a different role now as a promoted leader within the department to ensure really the same commitment, which is like, I'm not going to politicize you, because we're all going to be in this together in the sense that our compass is the Constitution and the rule of law, right? We expect it of everybody in our community, but we demand it of ourselves and of each other. Yeah. And they're all like, yep. So I'm not going to have to politicize you, because you're not going to be here if you're not following the rule of law and the Constitution and standing up for it. Right. And protecting people's constitutional rights. Right. Right? Yeah. And they're like, yep. I mean, there's literally no questions asked. That's all they ask of me. Yeah. Yes. And in my mind, I'm like, I don't understand this seems so easy, but that's not what the officers as a industry nationwide are accustomed to, because politicians are often wanting to, score points in the headlines or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I don't want that. I don't need that. I just want a great department that respects the rule of law and the constitutional rights of our people and of ourselves, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And I'm just blown away at how receptive they are to that. They're not just receptive. They're all in.
Yeah.
And I think that's a message that I share with them that I hope that you share with the community, is that's the commitment that they're making. And they feel like, they're like, that's why I'm here.
Yeah.
To them, that's just the baseline expectation.
Yeah.
And for us to deliver on that, to me, I'm really happy to do that for them.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. I think 99% of the time, 99.9% of the time, when we have complaints or issues or things of that nature, and we really just break it down, and I listen to people and I hear what they're saying, and that's all they just want to be heard.
That's all they want.
That's all they want. They want most complaints, for lack of a better term, are de-escalated by me just listening.
Right. Well, so if that's the arrangement that we have, the agreement, then I think that there's a lot of onus on me and on our leadership to provide the training,
yes,
and the resources,
yes,
right?
Yes, absolutely.
And the support through policies to make sure that they're all rooted in best practices, that their best practices are rooted in a long history of case law, et cetera.
Yeah.
And that there's a culture of accountability to those policies.
Absolutely.
Right?
I think accountability is just huge. You can't have a well-functioning police department without the accountability.
Right. And what I've learned again is that they are the ones to hold each other the most accountable and themselves the most accountable.
Yeah.
Which I don't think the public recognizes. That's something I've learned as the mayor.
Yeah.
I've seen it time and time again.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
They're definitely harder on themselves.
They are.
And on each other.
Right.
Than the public.
They're driven, and they have a high expectation of themselves.
Yeah.
Even higher than they have of others out in the community.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
So do you share a lot of that with people when you meet with them, like if there's an issue or whatever?
Yes. Because I speak Spanish, I also deal a lot with just our underserved communities. I also try to put together there's a lot of groups that we meet with on a regular basis. Like one that I was just working on today is we have a group of clergy that we meet with on a regular basis. And really it's just building that understanding. And then if there is a disconnect, if there is something where someone has a legitimate complaint, a legitimate reason for, being upset or however we want to word it, then I can take it back to the chiefs and say, hey, this is the situation. This is what's happening. And then we can actually really look into it. But unless people are telling us what some of the concerns and situations are, we're not going to know. Because we have a department of 150 officers.
Okay, it gets to the culture of accountability. It shouldn't only exist when there's something serious that happened. You said earlier that they're humans, they're people. Anytime that you manage people, there needs to be some mentoring and coaching and leadership and management, et cetera, right?
Yes.
And so it's important that we are always available and always providing an expectation and having that accountability internally, because sometimes we're not all perfect in everything we do.
Right.
And so there needs to be a difference between coachable moments,
absolutely,
right, and termination type moments,
right.
There's a huge difference.
Yes.
But if you wait until the major issue before you start having coaching along the way, well, you're almost destined for those hard ones.
Right.
And so I ask my chief to make sure that we're the kind of administration that provides, support and resource and coaching and mentoring along the way.
Yeah.
And so I'll often have a conversation with them, and I'll be like, I need you to chief this up in the way that they need to hear it, not from me directly. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Well, and it's that language and term difference.
It's different. Right.
That's when I say, like, the community sometimes says one thing and the police are saying it, but they're using different terms and different language. And then they get offended by each other's terms and languges. And then even though they're saying the same thing,
they're saying the same thing, but
and I'm like, wait a minute.
But they're
hang on, guys.
They're just passing each other.
Yeah.
So when I talk to Chief Subi, he and I don't go a week without talking to him. If I go a week, it's too long. And I'm like, all right, man, we got to talk. What's going on?
Yeah.
That's the kind of relationship a mayor and a chief need to have. But when we have those talks, I'm like, look, I am elected from the people to lead 700 people on behalf of 90,000. And so I think when he and I are talking, I'm talking to the chief of police who's had a long storied career in police work. And I'm a member of the community representing that viewpoint. And so we have a really good way of talking back and forth and understanding each other.
Yes.
And so I often tell him, I go, okay, now that you know where I'm at, on behalf of 90,000 people, I need you to go chief it up.
Yep.
For your 150 sworn officers.
Yes.
And your civilian staff, right?
Yes. Yep. It's similar to what I do. I hear it from the community in one way, and then I have to change my language sometimes when I'm communicating it back to the department. But I think I've figured out a pretty good way to have that
make
balance.
It all work. Do you are you hearing a lot from the community? People, there's a lot of angst right now, a lot of rhetoric coming from the national level.
Yes.
Are you hearing a lot from people in our community?
Yes. I'd say the last couple of weeks, that has been the majority of what I've been focusing on, is trying, like I said, because we still don't know the total ramifications of everything that's coming down from a national level.
Right.
Trying to alleviate some of that angst. And one of the things I tell them is, from a fellow immigrant, I understand.
Right.
I understand. I know. I understand the fear better than they could possibly imagine. I understand the fear. But the only thing that we can do, what we can control, is what Ogden Police, what Ogden Police can control. You know, and at this point, you know, it's just trying to really ease and explain the processes and explain how the procedures work. And I think even just with that in and of itself, I think it's helped. We've met with several of our predominant faith leaders in these last 2 weeks to really just try to get the message to them so they can get the message to their congregations. That, you know, at this point, Ogden Police is Ogden Police.
I know, that's the hard thing is, honestly, I don't know much more than what I see on the news. I'm not hearing from the president.
Yeah.
Right?
We didn't call you last night.
He's not calling the mayor of Ogden to tell me what's coming.
Yeah.
But that's where we feel stuck too. But I want to continue to be Ogden Police Department. I want to be unapologetic in our proactive policing efforts. I want to, because it's led to real gains. I mean, we're
absolutely
50% or more reductions in Part 1 crime over the last 10 years or whatever.
Yeah.
And those are real measurable gains that are as a result of being a really proactive and you know, I don't know if aggressive is the right word, but taking public safety as a high priority.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so that's the work that they continue to do, regardless of who the president is.
Yeah.
And they're out to make sure that there are not criminals in our community that are hurting and threatening the rights of others.
Yeah.
Including our immigrant community.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's another big thing, another big message that we try to get out there, and I try to get out there, is that regardless of legal status, people still have rights.
Right.
A victim of a crime is still a victim of a crime. We know that a lot of our underserved populations have a higher crime rate than the majority population. It's just
in terms of being victimized.
Yes, in terms of being victimized.
Right.
It's just a fact. So if there are victims of crime, we want them to be able to come forward. We want to be able to help them. We want to take these predators off the street. And I think no matter how you feel about immigration, everybody wants predators off the street.
Right?
Yeah, everybody wants them.
So we don't regulate or have the authority to regulate or to even ask about immigration status.
Right.
So our officers are out there enforcing the law. And if there's criminals, they're going to get arrested. And everything else is outside of our control. But I have to imagine there's a lot of crossover in people's minds. There's no difference between a federal immigration officer versus our officers.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that concerns me too.
And I had that as a child because you don't know better.
Right.
And when you don't know better, you're fearful of things. So going out and doing some presentations and explaining the role of police and explaining how, you know, federal enforcement is very different than state and local government, and explaining the differences between, you know, getting booked into jail and having their fingerprints come up at the jail as part of an ICE flag is very different than an officer arresting you because of your legal status.
Very different.
Two very, very different things, and we don't have anything to do with what happens if their fingerprints are already in the system at the jail. Like, that is completely out of our hands.
Right. So what I worry is I don't want to I want to continue to be Ogden Police Department
Mm-hmm.
and keep doing the things that have been so beneficial for our community for so long. And I want to do that unapologetically
Mm-hmm.
while also protecting and valuing all of the work that you have done and the dynamic we have as a department with our community.
Yeah.
And I want to do that unapologetically.
Yes.
I feel really strongly about both things,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
And so I appreciate all the work you're doing to help,
Thank you.
especially on the personal level with people in our community, to make sure that their fears are hopefully relieved. to a
Yeah,
degree.
and that's the thing is, and the thing, kind of our common thing that we've said the last couple of weeks is we don't know. We've seen some of these executive orders come out, but we don't know what teeth are behind them.
Right.
So
or,
an executive
or
or-
resources.
Yes. Yeah. So, there's an executive order out there, but at this point, Ogden Police is still a local law enforcement agency.
And a lot of the things that, like the real stuff you read about in the headlines, hasn't come to Utah that I've seen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no.
The things that I have seen are the things that we have always seen,
Mm-hmm.
that there has always been
There's just a lot
an
bigger
immigration and
magnifying
custom
glass.
enforcement that has targeted repeat and violent
Mhm.
criminals,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
That has always happened.
Mm-hmm.
And so to see it happen now, but now it's got a whole lens of rhetoric on top of it, makes it
Mhm.
even more challenging,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and like I said, I understand the fear. I completely understand the fear. But I am just hopeful that we can get the message out there enough to tell people that if they are being victimized, we want to know. And there are some, not to get too political, but one of the things we say in the presentation is, there are visas available for victims of crime. And if you are a willing participant with law enforcement, there is a potential that you could get legal status just because you've been victimized in this country and you're willing to testify against your offender.
Wow, that's a big deal.
A huge deal.
So-
And sorry, but Ogden
you're
has
good.
this amazing PATH program.
That's what I was going to say,
Yes, Ogden
let's
has this
finish on a
amazing
positive
PATH.
note.
Yes,
because we are running a PATH
Yes,
program. Do you want to tell them a little bit about that?
yeah. So I am super excited that Linda was invited me into this, little cohort of a few of us that got together, and she was a mastermind, so I can't take credit for it, but it's such an amazing program for those people who already have legal status, and they are just wanting to get to their citizenship, to their United States citizenship. There's always so many barriers, so many reasons, so many excuses that people make for not getting their U.S. citizenship once they're eligible, that I think we've really found a way to try to eliminate as many of those barriers as we can. We had our first successful pilot last year, which was it warmed my heart. I was so excited, and so I can't even find the word right now to tell you, but that we hosted here in Ogden the naturalization ceremony for our first cohort of people that went through the PATH program. It just, it made my heart happy.
Mine too. I got to participate in the event, obviously, as a speaker, and it was amazing where everybody comes from.
Mm-hmm.
I even recognized some of the participants.
Yeah.
They're parts of our workforce.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's an important contribution from our immigrant community. There's an important contribution from our police community,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
These are the things that make us a community, and I don't want to see new dynamics that change our perception of who we are.
Yeah.
We're going to continue to be
Mm-hmm.
a proactive and well-resourced and active police department that protects the rights of others,
Yeah.
that goes after people that are doing harm to our people
Yes.
and puts them in jail. And
Yeah.
where they end up after that is not up to us, but that
Mhm.
doesn't. Our focus is getting criminals off the street, period,
Absolutely.
regardless of your status,
Mm-hmm.
while also being really forward-thinking and leaning into programs like the PATH program and all of the events that we host, and
Mm-hmm.
supporting the cultures, the diverse cultures that we have in our community.
Yeah.
Right? That's the kind of city we are.
Absolutely. And I was telling you earlier off camera, but that's what my dad went all around the United States trying to figure out what felt like home. You're going to leave your home to bring your family to another home. And he's been everywhere in the United States. And he picked Ogden, Utah. This was a place that he wanted to bring his family, and he wanted to raise his family and add to his family. And we've been here since.
There we go.
And now I have tons of my family who still lives here. So I have in case you can't tell, I have a very big vested interest
Right.
in Ogden.
A lot of us do,
Mm-hmm.
and so I'm glad we'll wrap it up on that note. The fact that we are Ogden, that we're a community,
Yes.
we're a community that cares, we're a community that has always embraced our differences, and we're a community that values and prioritizes public safety, and we also value and prioritize the relationship that our public safety has with our community.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
And so I'm proud to be a part of that. Really proud of the department that we have. I'm really proud of the fact that they're always striving to be better.
Yes.
And thank you for your help in making sure that's the case for Ogden.
Well, thank you.
Because frankly, that is
The Ogden Way.
the Ogden Way,
Love
right?
it.
So thank you to everybody who tuned in today to listen to our conversation with Diana Lopez, Community Outreach Coordinator for the Ogden Police Department, also community member, community leader,
Yes.
just a person who loves all things Ogden, always has. So thank you for everything that you do. Thanks for being here today. For our call to action today, let's encourage people to see our first responders as people,
Yes.
to come to an event or engage with them if you see them in their work, and try and get past the badge and get to the person,
Yes.
right?
Look past the uniform. There's more there.
Right. And if we did that with everybody, not just our first responders,
Yes.
but if everybody did it for each other, we would be a lot better as a world and certainly as a community, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you, Diana.
Thank you.
Until next time,
Okay.
thanks for joining us.